now. We have to go live.
It's not playing it.
It still didn't do it again?
Mm. Well, I guess we are going. Just go.
Interesting. Okay, what's up, everybody? My name is Scout Natick, aka the rep from Section X.
And I am Catherine, aka Do You and Elks.
And we are the Elks Herd. Tonight we have an amazing 2025 CFL Free Agent Frenzy for you here on the Elks Herd. We are also joined here by our guest, Avry Lewis-McDougall. Avry, we know that you are in quite a bit of atmosphere here. We know you as obviously with Avry Sports, which is a pretty big deal. But Game Over Edmonton, voice of the Grand Mag Griffins basketball team. Man, you are an Edmonton media legend already. So thanks a lot for joining us tonight.
No, of course, pleasure to be here. Pleasure to be on the show for the first time.
Oh, it's very cool. How's your 2025 been so far?
It has been very busy again, as Yale mentioned. The Grant McEwen work, Avry Sports, Game Over. For me, it's been nonstop, going from the Elks coverage to hockey coverage to basketball. For me, the grind doesn't stop.
Oh, exactly. It's that's quite a bit of plate. I do see you around at various events, various press conferences. Speaking of press conferences, did you happen to catch the Edmonton Elks conference today?
I did get a chance to watch it. I couldn't make it down today, but I did catch up on what happened, and it was cool again to see Ed Hervey go to work, welcome back Jake Ceresna, bring in Tyrell Ford, bring in a lot of names. And when I saw when Ed Hervey was brought back to his franchise, I knew Ed would go to work, and Ed has proven that, hey, he wants to see his team win again. He doesn't want to see his team have another year of 4 wins, 5 wins, 6 wins. This is a man who, when he played here, he didn't miss a playoff season at all. He won Grey Cups, and now being the head honcho again, he wants his team winning Grey Cups as soon as possible.
Oh, no kidding. And you can tell with that passion in his voice, you can tell with the moves that they've made already. We're going to dig into that, all of that in just a moment. Once again, we're really excited to have you on, man. We've been talking about collaborating for a while, so we're super excited you could carve out some time for us. Now, Herd Chat, we see you tuning in. You know what to do. Blow it up, the Herd Chat.
Darren over here already with an Ed we trust. So.
That's the sentiment right now here in the city of Edmonton, right? It was really cool. And I mean, there's so many things we get to talk about. I don't know if we've had this level of excitement in Edmonton for 10 years, really. 10 years, right? So a lot to talk about. Now, like I said, Herd Chat, this is a very interactive show tonight. So please get in on the Herd Chat. This is not your regular show. It's a great day to be an Elks fan. We want to hear what fans have to say. We also see Jason in Red Deer, who happens to be a Calgary Stampeders fan. So, I mean, he's tuning in. That's the kind of excitement we got. So it's very, very cool. Now, first question of the night here, Avry. We always like to get to know a first-time guest on the Elks Call. So what was your first major sports memory, and how did it influence you to venture on this path to sports journalism?
My first major sports memory, that's a great question. It was probably when I was either 5 or 6 years old, watching basketball, watching the NBA on NBC, and falling in love with the Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan. And my mom, she always said that she would watch me watch basketball. I was a little kid, like I was a toddler, and I would be mimicking the broadcasts as like a 3 or 4 year old watching the NBA. And she asked me, what am I doing? I would say I was broadcasting. That was probably where it first started, where I wanted to get into media. And I was a kid, it's funny because as a kid, I grew up playing a lot of sports. I grew up playing basketball, lacrosse, baseball, tennis. But at a certain point, you realize, you're not going to make it in sports as a player. Next best thing is as a media personality. So when I turned 15 years old, I got into podcasting. And this in 2008, back when no one knew what a podcast was, no one knew what a blog was. It was all very new, very fresh. I did that for a few years, and through that I got to apply for credentials to the then Eskimos, now Elks. And even back then, I remember back then the CFL landscape was very different because I was the youngest person in the press box at Commonwealth. Again, no one knew what a podcast was. I had to build up trust with the team and with the league to say, hey, that I'm not some random kid who just wants to see free games. So I got to interview a lot of players back in the day. I got to meet a lot of Elk players back when the team was still in their doldrums of missing the postseason. The 09, 10, 11 Elks were not very good. They're not good teams when I first started covering them. Things changed when Mike Riley came in. That's when the turnaround changed. When they got Mike Riley, things changed. I got comfortable covering the Elks. I moved to Toronto for a couple of years. I got a gig with SB Nation covering soccer, MLS, covering Toronto FC. Covered their first run to MLS Cup, which was a fun game. Came back, worked in radio, and I've also worked with the CEBL, with Edmonton Stingers. Yeah. I was a web host for a couple of years. Had a rugby show in the UK on TV, talking rugby. So that was pretty fun to be on Sky Sports. And unfortunately, that show ended due to COVID. No. COVID, yep. We were canceled in 2020. We were supposed to have 33 episodes, only aired 7. Rest were canceled due to COVID. But I'm finding my ways to try and bounce back. I do work also with the hockey news. I've done stuff in the past with Yahoo Sports Canada, with SDPN, and again, my own shows, Avry Sports Show, Third Intermission Podcast, Avry Sports. And really, I'm just a jack of all trades, trying to stay active, trying to keep the grind going, because the way the media is changing, you can't only have one gig. You have to find 2, 3, 4 things. And the way to get ahead now isn't by hoping you can get picked up by the big stations. I mean, that would be the end goal. But in the meantime, you have to make your own content. You have to make your own content and get ahead in the meantime to show these outlets, hey, I can go on air, I can write, I can do it, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. First of all, what an acumen.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeff.
You have been doing this for a while, and clearly you have a lot of professional experience. So that's really, really cool to see. Really cool to hear. I don't have a lot of experience when it comes to the broadcasting and media, and this is fairly new to me. So knowing that there's somebody so experienced, that's super cool. Super cool.
But it's also cool hearing, obviously, Avry, you've had to cut the cloth, right? Like you've had to gain that trust, build your own name up. And I mean, it's a testament, right? We see what you do. We're going to talk about you on the CFL sidelines, but you've put yourself out there and you've made it to this point now. Passion, that's a really big thing.
Definitely. And I mean, we know that Edmonton is where you call home. Mm-hmm. We've seen you cover multiple leagues from the booths and the sidelines, as Scout says, from the CFL. So where does your passion for sports come from?
Also, my passion, that's a great question. I've always just had a love for watching it. And I don't know where, well, my dad ran track and field in the NCAA for Kentucky. So that probably was passed down towards me having a dad who ran track and field. But it was also just, it was never discouraged. It was always encouraged for me just to get into sports one way or another. I was always encouraged in my family. So that's probably where it comes from. And for me, and it's funny because I'm the big CFL person in my family. The CFL isn't really a big thing among my family, my immediate family, although my cousin does play for UBC football. My cousin played for UBC for a few years and is going to be a CFL free agent next year. But beyond that, the CFL was really a thing I stumbled upon as a kid. I said, hey, this is going to be my thing to get into more. And growing up, I remember being 32 years old, there was always a stigma when I was younger of, oh, the CFL isn't cool. The CFL is lame. All these silly rules. But no, like, I love the quirks. I love the differences of the CFL. I love the stories of the CFL. Like, I've gotten to know so many players, past and present, in the CFL. Like, I can pick up my phone and, again, talk to Mike Riley. I can talk to a Damon Allen. I can talk to legends in the game. I think that's really cool. And I want to be the kind of person that can push the CFL forward and say, hey, you know what? You can be young. You can enjoy the CFL because its own. It's a unique game that deserves its praise. But I'm the kind of kid. I watch all football. I watch college ball. I watch the CFL. I watch arena football. Like I watch all of these different leagues of football because they all have their own different quirks that make them great.
Yes.
So then who do you cheer for outside of, let's say, football?
Outside of football, okay. Which sports? Which one are we talking about?
Oh, just give me all your favorite teams.
Favorite teams, okay. Basketball, I'm a Raptors guy. I have been for a very long time. Baseball, the Blue Jays. Although I do have a soft spot for the Dodgers because my friend Joe Kelly is a pitcher for the Dodgers, so that's my team. I cheer for when the Jays are knocked out. Football, NFL. I'm a Green Bay Packers guy. Been a Packers guy. Yeah, been a Packers fan since I was a little kid. Soccer. If you want to talk soccer, English Premier League, my team never wins. It is Everton. They have not won a trophy in 30 years, not 95. So they're perennially mid-table. They're just trying to stay up in the Premiership, but hopefully that changes. They got new ownership, so hopefully they can start being that team that spends a little bit more and makes it into the top half because, we've not won a title of any sort in 30 years. Haven't been to the Champions League in 20 years, so hopefully that changes in a few years here.
Yeah. And
oh my goodness.
Heard chat, Darren Povich, Bears fans say what?
Bears fans says we only win 5 games a year.
Yeah, exactly. Bears fans say Packers own the Bears. Let's take a look at the herd chat here before we move on. Merv Jennings, CFL is the bomb.
Sure
yes,
is.
We agree. Oh, CFL is indeed the bomb.
And then we have Darren, of course, just saying Avry.
Wait. We got Ginger Argo in the herd chat. What up, Ginger Argo? He's heading to bed, so he might not even hear this right now. But heading to bed. Damn you, Elks, for stealing our players. Love Edmonton. See y'all in August. So I think
that's still so far away. But you know what? That's Let's bring it back to the CFL a little bit. And the one thing that I really enjoy about this and hearing all your, like I say, the professional acumen and your passion is that I feel like we truly need a lot more of this here in Canada for the CFL. Young talent, passionate talent, and talent that is able to adapt to very different media streams and different ways of bringing in the news, because that's what's happening. Media is changing, and we all have to change with the times and the way that things are going, and the way that the internet is going, and how we are getting our news and how we're learning about all of these sports. And of course, we, as I mentioned before, you have been a CFL sideline guy, grabbing content for the league and bringing in a fresh, new, young point of view to the game of CFL. So what has it been like to cover the CFL so closely?
Man, when I was on there in 2023 in the sidelines, I think, first of all, the biggest thing for me was, one, don't get trampled. That was the big thing I learned. I wanted to make sure of in 2023 when I was the league content coordinator from Edmonton, was make sure, you don't get trampled getting content for the league from Edmonton, because you learn that. I mean, I've been on the sidelines in the past for like the final 2 minutes of games going to the locker room, but being on the field for an entire game, you get to really see how fast the game is at that level. I think from the TV and being in the stands doesn't translate that, how quick plays develop, things change. So you got to be aware. But also, too, my job entailed going by the benches and getting the vibes of how players are reacting, how things are going, good, bad, and the ugly. And it was kind of cool because you saw the emotions of players, after a win, after a bad play, after a great play. It was interesting, and it's things that fans don't see for an entire game. You might see conversations that you might not see on TV, and picking up on all those little nuances, I want to make sure a fan could see on Instagram in my role as a content guy for the league in 2023.
That's so, and it's so cool. I mean, it's so cool that you get to see the players go through those motions. Also here in Edmonton, also in Commonwealth Stadium, and a very emotional time for the Edmonton Elks too. I think, 2023, brutal season. We talked about it enough on this show. And, you got to handpick that content and be the provider to the fans. And I mean, honestly, us fans eat it up. The CFL sometimes does not get covered enough. And we're not even talking about what you do outside of, your sideline duties with the CFL that year. So really, really sweet that you got to do that. Now, that was for the Edmonton Elks. And the Edmonton Elks, I know that we just kind of alluded to it, but they have not been a good team since 2021. So I got to know what is your thoughts on this organization 2021 to, let's say, when Ed Hervey stepped in, when Chris Morris stepped in, and when they kind of turned that page. So like previous regime, what's your thoughts on that Double E brand?
Right now, with the regime coming in, I like the fact that you've got people like Chris Morris, like Ed Hervey, who know what it takes to win, who they said themselves, they want the revolving door to end. And that was a big problem back during the regime of guys like Victor Cui and Chris Jones. You saw so much roster turnover, things weren't harmonious. And that's going to change now with Chris Morris and Ed Hervey. They're going to establish a culture of bonding with players, and also Mark Killam as well too, and his staff. They're going to figure out how to keep these guys in Edmonton and how to make Edmonton a destination. And that was a thing that the previous regime had a hard time doing, going back to 2020, 2021, when, again, the revolving door and the constant losing. And if you're a player, if you're a coach, you don't want to be around that where a team has no direction. I see a direction now, Chris Morris and Hervey, in a major way.
No, exactly. I mean, they're really trying to reverse all of that damage that has been done. And I mean, multiple reasons. We've talked about the reasons plenty of times on this show. We don't need to hash it up anymore, but the organization was not being run in that Double E way, in that winning way. You had, once again, external people to the organization, people that knew nothing about the Double E's or the brand, coming in and running it. So, I mean, I like what you said there. I like what you've mentioned with Mark Killam as well.
Yeah, and I really enjoy that thought, like you said, of Edmonton becoming a destination, right? Not necessarily a pit stop or not necessarily just a way to something else, and now that's what we're seeing. And we're going to talk about some of these guys that, perhaps had a better offer somewhere else, and they decided to come to Edmonton because that's what they're building right here, and everybody can see it. And there's a lot of hope that that's where it's going to go.
So, but before we dig in, do we want to check the herd chat?
Yes,
real
let's
quick?
do that before we really dig into the free agency talk.
Because this is where, if you are tuning in tonight for the free agent frenzy for the Double E, this is it coming up. So yeah, let's get to the.
But yes, let's see. We have a comment over here from Meg Cossey saying that Avry has been a long-time sports rager. Gabe Morency met Avry on his show 15 years ago. So definitely been around. We talked to Gabe Morency just recently.
Well, we all saw each other. Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
Very special moment. Very cool.
Steven over here from Facebook says, Harvey built us into a championship team, brother. Epic show, brother.
Epic show, brother. Let's go. Steve, appreciate you tuning into the show tonight. He also checked out Jason's show last night with Dave Naylor as well.
Yeah. So we have a comment right here from Darren, Chris Parachute and Jones. That's exactly it. And Mark is going to kill him.
Yeah, Mark is going to kill him. That was very good by Darren.
I love it.
We do have a fan question, but let's get to that near the end.
Right. Yes. You just have to remind me of which one it
was about players. Do we want to ask that now?
You know what? Let's ask that now, just in case if more people talk in the chat and we lose it. So before we go into the main question of the show, Avry, beside Mike Riley, who is your top 5 EE players?
Ooh, if we're going all time, I can give you all time.
Oh, yes.
Oh, all time. Okay, I gotta say, I know we can do 5 in order, but I'll give you my 5, period. Mention there, Mike Riley's in there. Another one, Jason Tucker.
Yeah.
Tucker is in there. Gizmo Williams.
Best.
I'll say AJ Gass.
AJ Gass, classic.
And my fifth. Ooh, that's a tough one. That's a genuine tough one. My fifth. Ooh, wow. Who is my fifth? You know what I'm gonna say? I'm gonna say because he made some massive kicks. Sean Fleming.
Yes, I knew
Sean Fleming some love there.
Nice.
Sean Fleming some love.
I love it.
Oh, that's a great list.
Perfect.
Double E legends.
Alrighty.
All right, so let's talk CFL free agency. We've been wanting to talk about this for a hot minute now. The whole purpose of this show, it's a great one. Now, the Edmonton Elks, they've brought on many pieces, and some have also ventured to other teams. So let's talk about these additions. And Avry, we want to know your thoughts on the players that they've signed. So Kathy, have the...
Before we get your thoughts, let me just go through the signings that we've had so that people are aware. Back in January, we did have American wide receiver Trey Autumn-Stooks signing. And once again, I apologize for everybody that listens, but I totally butcher names in this show. So I apologize. National defensive lineman Jonathan Kongbo. Martez Ives was extended.
Huge.
American defensive back Steve Stevens IV was signed. American defensive back Harold Nash III was signed. We have American linebacker Clayton Isbell and long snapper Luke Burton-Cron extended. So that was in January. And in February, we did have a few signings as well.
This is like the bulk of the free agency.
The bulk. Well, no, not yet. No, there's a few agents that are still free agents.
Oh, okay, yeah.
We're just talking about the signings right now.
Okay.
In February, we had national offensive lineman Brett Boyko sign, and we'll talk to him about him in the releases as well, because he was released and then signed. Jacob Plamondon was extended. Niles Morgan was extended. We do have an American defensive lineman, Ali Fayyad, signed. American linebacker, Daniel Green. American defensive lineman, Elijah McAllister. American defensive back, Willie Roberts. American linebacker, Luque Washington Jr. And we have some more.
But then we get into the bulk of the
and
free
then
agency.
we have, we've seen in the news, Keon Julian Grant, linebacker Emmanuel Rugamba, Royce Mechie, defensive back, offensive lineman Gregor McKellar, defensive back Kobe Williams, and national wide receiver Tyson Middlemost. And then on the 12th, so today, we officially signed a whole bunch of players as well, including national defensive back Tyrell Ford, American defensive lineman Jake Seresna, American defensive lineman Jared Brinkman, national offensive lineman David Beard, national defensive lineman Robbie Smith, and national defensive lineman Sam Achpong re-signed. Going a little hard. So yes, long list. Everything is on the Elks website as well, if you guys missed it. Very long list.
You can also go to shotgunsportsnetwork.ca as well to cover some of these signings, which were announced during the Ed Hervey CFL communications window.
Yes. So Avry, what's your thoughts on all these signings?
Yeah.
Honestly, I am very glad to see how active Ed was. And again, he's not sitting back. He's looking at this team and saying, how can I immediately make this team better? I love the fact that he's gone in and brought back Seresna. He's addressed the receivers room, because yes, you did lose guys like Geno Lewis, Gavin Cobb. He's working to address that, because you need guys to catch the football as well. It can't just be Trey back there hooking it up. You got guys who can catch the ball from Trey. So I'm glad we're seeing Hervey getting to work, signing in guys at receiver, and then you bring in Tyrell Ford, someone who's a ball hawk, someone who can get you tackles in the defensive backfield. I love the fact that Ed's gotten Tyrell. So you're seeing Ed being very aggressive right now and saying, yes, I know it's February, I know it's early, but I'm going to try and get the jump on everybody else right now so that I'm a step ahead of guys of teams like Ottawa, Hamilton, etc. Even though they've gotten their own guys as well too, he's trying to get a jump on these teams out east, so which is a great sign to see for Ed.
Well, and that's exactly what this team needed. I mean, I think that they were going for the stars in the wrong ways. You're going for, $300,000 wide receivers, as Ed Hervey has put it. And I think that Ed Hervey is completely right to call it that. This $300,000 wide receiver thing. I believe, something along those lines in the winter meetings. The team has not gone for the right pieces or tried to retain the right pieces up until really the turn of the page. Like I say, with Chris Morris coming in, Larry Thompson buying the team, really, they're turning a page. And Larry Thompson, the biggest fan ever, it took the biggest fan ever to get this team back on track. Get back to your family ways. Get back to your family roots. Keep guys in town. Get Jake Seresna back. Jake Seresna, getting him back is such a big deal. Considering this guy just went and got some pedigree. We all knew he was Grey Cup worthy, but he's bringing some back to Edmonton.
That's what I said today when we saw him, and we'll talk about this here shortly. But I was like, you know what? Good for you. You went and got yourself a ring, and now you're coming back to get another one.
Yeah. So, just absolutely massive, right? And I agree. I think that this team really did need to make these kind of moves, especially with momentum. You take a look at the end of last year. And at the end of the season last year, they're trying to ride a high. Things get chopped down a bit. They try to end on a strong note, and that's what gets you into this offseason.
Yeah.
Ed Hervey needed to get those like-minded people back in. And I mean, Tyrell Ford, like you said, he's a ball hawk. How could you not want a Canadian all CFL, but Canadian CFL all-star? How could you not want this guy to be on your squad, especially when you have Trey Ford? You have that Waterloo. They could be on the same team since Waterloo for the first time since Waterloo Warriors days.
How are you going to miss out on that opportunity? To have both Ford brothers in the same team. And it's not like it's mere talent. It's not like it's, mediocre talent. No, this is good talent that you have. This is, from all aspects of the business, from the business side to the marketing side to the actual, performance and on the field side, this is good.
and here's probably the best part, in my opinion, and Avry, chime in on this, Canadian content. How nice is it to see Canadian content thrive?
No, it's nice. It's nice to see this team committing to that. That was always a big thing for many years. You could always find solid Canadian talent on both sides of the ball in Double E, no matter what era. And the fact that they're getting back to that, you got trade quarterback, you got Tyrell, you bring in Canadian receivers, Canadian guys in the D-line, O-line. That's been a big thing when it comes to not just play, but marketing yourself and trying to connect with the fan base in many ways.
Oh, totally. And especially now with the political landscape of the world, how things are going, now's the best time to buy Canadian. And now's but what I'm saying is, for all of the stuff that's happening in the world, maybe all these fans that have tuned into the NFL for so long, why don't you try tuning into the CFL? Because we do have a great product here. And more times than not, we do overlook. And we go ahead and watch NFL and claim that NFL is the more entertaining league. Right. So if there's ever a time, Canada, I will say, and I've seen the post before, and this is far from a political show, we aren't ever going to go there. But what I will say is
by Canadian.
What I will say though is there is a great Canadian product in your backyard, and it's been overlooked more times than not. Definitely. So if there is a time for you to tune into the CFL this year, if there is a time to tune into the CFL in general, it's this year.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting times. We do have Darren over here in the chat, saying off Smash Mouth football with big receivers, a big goal line. Right? That's in ranking all over the place.
Yeah.
So definitely Definitely something to watch. Very exciting things coming.
Well, and they did extend Javon Leake, right?
Yes.
So that's part of what this offseason has been for
Mm-hmm.
the Edmonton Elks, which is massive.
Yeah. But let's talk about what has been lost, because there has also been some receivers that we have seen. Back in January, we did see big releases such as Elliott Brown, Dylan Mitchell, Jake Julian, which of course, he went to pursue some NFL opportunities, so we're always going to be happy for him about that. Pure Foy, Boris Beatty, and Brett Boyko. So that alone, and some of those releases that we saw back in January, those are painful to hear.
Yeah.
We also saw national defensive lineman Antonio Alfano that was released, and just recently today became official that national defensive lineman Jamin Pelly was also released. So sad about all of those, but what does that mean? What do you think, Avery? Do these releases really will affect the Double E right now as it stands, or what do you think will happen?
I mean, I think the biggest ones, obviously, to see leave are Julian, Eugene Lewis, Hergy Mayala. Those are three of the biggest names, and it was expected Jake Julian, after the year he had as the best punter in the league and one of the best punters Edmonton ever had. It was expected that he would try to test his luck down in the NFL. And you know what? More power to him. Go and do that, because you deserve a look at the NFL with the year you had, in which you. I mean, what a way to end your CFL career, Jake Julian, with a walk-off single. That was trending. The fact that your last play in the CFL is a walk-off single to win a ball game, that's a cool way to end your CFL tenure. But yeah, that's going to be a major loss. And when it comes to the receivers, losing Geno Lewis, a guy who still was able to give you a solid run of getting his 7-8 balls a game, being a near 1,000-yard guy still, like that's going to hurt in the core. But I do think Ed is going to find a way to find cheaper options as the regular season, as the offseason continues, which he's proven so far. I trust in him finding the value brand guys who he'll be able to plug in and play on special teams and in receiving core going forward.
Mm-hmm.
No, and special teams has been an issue with this team for a long time, right?
Definitely.
Jake Julian, bright spot last year. Him moving on, we knew that was gonna happen. Now the Edmonton Elks are pretty high on Vincent Blanchard, I believe, for the kicking duties.
Yeah.
So they do have some stuff down the pipeline. Cody Grace, he was signed, so that might be who's taking over for Jake Julian.
Yeah, and I mean, we do still have a few names out in free agency. Of course, we do. In the free agency, we did have Geno Lewis, but then he was picked up by the Ottawa Redblacks, of course. So there's that we will consider that a complete loss, which is very unfortunate, because that is the kind of talent you definitely don't want to see walk away. But unfortunately, there's only so much that as a business one can do.
Well, and really, I will speak up on this. The Edmonton Elks did screw up under the Chris Jones regime by signing Kenny Lawler to that very high-end deal. After that, it set the wide receiver market very high. So now the Eugene Lewis deal also set very high. He is entitled to his worth. Why? Because he is arguably the best wide receiver in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's always going to hurt, right? It's always going to hurt losing a Geno Lewis.
Mm-hmm. And, of course, now we have other names such as Darius Bratton, the Marcus Christmas, Gavin Cobb, as you mentioned, Jeremy Dominique, Vincent Force Monbleau, David Foucault, Tony Gray. Did I say Foucault? French name, sorry. Tony Gray, Josh Haggerty, Scott Hutter, Tevin Jones, AC Leonard, Les Moreau, Hergy Mayala, Derek Moncrief, Kyron Moore, Sean Oakman, Dakota Prokop, Shane Richards, Hunter Stewart, and Jacob Sotz that have all become free agents, and we're still trying to figure out exactly where that's going.
So, Avery, what names stick out to you on that free agent list? Like, besides obviously the ones we've talked about, like Hergy Mayala, Eugene Lewis.
Ooh, well, I would say two in my mind were AC Leonard and Scott Hutter. Those are two of the main names who I thought were great on the defensive side of the ball. AC Leonard, we saw having moments on not just on defense, on offense. Because remember, he's a converted receiver that went to D line, so you saw him have moments on both sides of the ball. But Leonard and Hutter, I thought were going to be big guys who his team will miss if they don't bring back next season, who were phenomenal defensively for his Elks team last year. Gang.
I agree, because like Scott Hutter, fantastic guy.
Yeah.
Also embodied the double E way a little bit. He was one of those raw guys, big with the fans.
Yeah.
And then, the other one that you had mentioned was AC Leonard. And AC Leonard, he was in on trick plays.
Well, but he was also gone for so long. I mean, I know that he was holding off, but I think for a better offer. And I'm just wondering if it was that long period of time that he decided to step away for a little bit, try to wait for a better offer that really is hindering his chances now.
Yeah. And I mean, he is a good player. He's also on the wrong side of 30. What do you think, Avry?
Yeah, that's the problem, is that there's like football at times, it's tough to battle back when you're on the wrong side of 30. Like you mentioned, Scout, it's tough to battle back, but he was finding ways to maintain in this league, which is impressive in itself past 30, but I would have loved to see him have one more year in Edmonton still, personally.
Definitely. You know, who I'm wondering about is the Dakota Prukop.
Dakota Prukop.
Okay. Who's going to be our short distance?
Yeah, short yardage.
Short yardage. So is it going to be Daggy?
I mean, right now Daggy's in that spot and he has a contract. You know that the Edmonton Elks are going to bring in around 3 more quarterbacks, right?
We know that's going to happen.
So, yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. And I mean, Cody Fajardo's at QB2. There's no way you move Fajardo from QB2.
No. So now it's Daggy, and whether we find somebody else for the short yardage.
Yeah, and I mean, that could be Daggy. Also, if you're Jared Daggy, maybe you have an opportunity elsewhere as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, he wouldn't be able to go to Spring League this year. He would have to go because he's under contract. So he would have to be back with the Edmonton Elks at training camp at bare minimum.
Yeah.
Do they put Daggy back onto the practice roster? Do they maybe look at him as a short yardage guy with hopes that he's QB2? Like, if you're Jared Daggy right now, I don't know how much movement you get. I do think he's worth the development. I don't know if it's going to be in Edmonton.
Yeah.
Because I think he's a great drop back. Like, he is a true drop back quarterback. But the Edmonton Elks have had a porous O-line before last year. So it's not like he's really had a fair shot.
Yeah. And Avry, what do you think about our kicking situation? What do you think is going to happen there?
Ooh, that's a great question. I know they let go of Boris Beatty, and that, to me, I think that's the biggest question mark right now. That's the one spot where I'm not certain of what the plan is going to be. That's the one position where I have a big question mark in terms of, I don't know what the direction is going to be, because we see kickers come and go so often, but I'm not sure what the play is. Like, no one in this organization has tipped their hand yet into who replaces Beatty at kicker.
Yeah, and that's like losing Boris Beatty, which released, right? But Boris Beatty, he wasn't necessarily, like, he's not necessarily a bad kicker. He was bad last year.
But even then, like, he had some really good games. Technically, when you're looking at stats, it's not like he was absolutely awful.
No, he wasn't awful. There's probably worse kickers in the league, right? It's just that he wasn't a shining star on the team.
No.
And I will say, though, look at Sergio Castillo. Yeah. He also had a lukewarm season or two in Edmonton. Like, I mean, he wasn't necessarily lights out either. I do think that there's, I don't know, maybe there's something up with special teams coaching. We'll find out what happens with it this year. Is the ball being held wrong? Is there? We don't know what the problem may be. Like,
it's a
honestly,
curse position.
Maybe it's a. Okay, we don't talk about curses in Edmonton.
Okay.
Let's get to the herd chat here before we move on.
Okay. Go ahead.
In the herd chat here, Darren here has a couple of comments. So, head coach Gillum, offensive coordinator Max Simic, and defensive coordinator Sherritt were big changes that will shift how the E will play. I would say that that's a correct statement.
Mm-hmm.
And these are also guys that are somewhat proven in their positions. Mark Killam, not so much at head coach, but he's got enough people around him, and he's a quality guy that should be able to mesh this all together. Darren Popovich, we fought the Lawler and the Lawler won. I like that. Hilarious.
The puns. Darren, the
this
puns.
Guy's punny. Also asked Fair from Calgary, I believe, for the kicker question.
Right. Oh, would that be an option?
Possibly, I think.
Maybe. We'll see. Like I say, it's really hard to say right now for that specific position in the Elks because there has been no way of knowing where they're even heading with that.
No, exactly. Keenan here in the herd chat. Let's talk about a podcast. What up, Keenan? Elks are going to be scary next year coming from a Riders fan. So what up, Keenan? Thanks a lot for tuning in tonight. Always good to see you in the herd chat, my friend.
But yeah.
All right. So how about we talk about the CFL as a whole? Avery, we know that you keep an eye out on the league. I think we all do. If you don't, then maybe you're too much of a homer. I don't know. Know what's going on around you to figure out how your team's doing. Otherwise, you're slightly delusional. So let's talk about the league. What team do you think has upgraded or improved over last year in this free agency? Now there are a couple of teams that have signed quite a few players, right? So what are your thoughts? What team do you think won free agency, or what team do you think is going to look better besides the Edmonton Elks?
Besides the Elks, I'm a big fan of the moves that Ottawa's made. Again, you bring in Gino Lewis, you bring in Tunde Adeleke at DB, and Ottawa last year, that's a team that took another step under a different step under Bob Dice last year. So I think Ottawa is ready to really threaten the powerhouse teams of the East with Lewis and Tunde coming in. So I like what Ottawa did in terms of improving themselves, getting better. That's a team that I've always enjoyed watching through thick and thin when not watching the Elks. So I think Ottawa's got a chance to really surprise some people now.
And Ottawa has been bottom of the basement for too long. You knew that they were going to make that step up, right? Like teams rise, teams fall. Ottawa under Bob Dice, like you said, has been taking those next steps in order to make it back to the playoffs, in order to make an impact in the playoffs. I believe they did actually make it to the playoffs last year, but I believe they were out in the first round. So it's, they're trying to get back into relevancy.
They definitely did a lot better than everybody else was.
Yes,
they did. They did.
Yes,
they
sure did.
They were the wild card. We're going to talk about wild card soon, but I would agree with that.
Yeah.
What do you think, Catherine? What team based on free agency
I would say I would agree with that. Okay. I'm not following 100% closely, but from what I have seen,
you
from what I have
Homer.
known, you see, Hamilton, Tiger Cats have made a splash. But then we also wonder about other teams like Winnipeg and Toronto. They're just giving away their players. Nothing.
Why don't we talk about that then?
Yeah. So is there some concerns there with, Winnipeg and the Argonauts that, they keep calling us the Edmonton Argonauts for a reason? Is there concerns in that end for those two teams?
Yeah, Avery, what do you think?
I think that's very funny, the Edmonton Argonauts thing, but I don't think there's too much concern. But looking at, you mentioned Toronto, that's a team where they've always been a team that wants to get better, wants to make a splash. Full credit to them. They brought in Hergy Mayala, they brought in Kadeem Carey, they brought back Cameron Dukes, they brought in Deontay Evans. I think Toronto's a team. You look at them, and that's going to be a team where they're going to make some noise again. Eastern Division, Darius Bratton as well too comes in. They're going to make some noise. I personally think a step back is taken somewhat again by Hamilton. I think that division is going to be determined by Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal going in 2025.
And I think you're right. I just talked about this, I believe, last night on Stampeders Roundup. It's one of those things where next man up mentality thrives and survives in Toronto. They always can find a way to get back there. Winnipeg is much of the same. Now, I will say Winnipeg has lost a lot of pieces.
Yeah,
like they've lost Kenny Lawler. They've lost that instant chemistry with Zach Collaros, where Zach Collaros could just find this guy downfield, reminiscent of Michael Riley and a Darius Bowman stuff. They've lost some significant pieces. And I believe on both sides of the line there, they might have lost one or two. And they're hosting the Grey Cup. To me, this feels like 2018 Double E.
Oh, no.
It's starting to feel like 2018 Double E for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
That's not good for them.
No. I think that the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, I think they might be fighting for a third spot this year even. And I'm not saying Edmonton Elks to the GC. I'm not even going to say the full word because we're not going to jinx this right now. But what I will say is Winnipeg has taken a hit. Live update, by the way, on that Team Canada game. We have to go to this. Canada won 4-3 in OT. 4 nations face off tonight against Team Sweden. Thank you very much, Jason of Stampeders Roundup in the herd chat. Greatly appreciate that. But yeah, I mean, I do think that there should be some concerns if you're a Winnipeg Blue Bombers fan.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting because sometimes you never know right now. Obviously, they had the chemistry last year. Obviously, they were going places. They got, as far as the Grey Cup. So having so many different moves, we'll see what that does for the team in itself. But what would you say that your wild card team this year is? It's an unexpected contender.
Unexpected wild card team. Wow. Unexpected team. My wild card. I'll say. Ooh, wow. Who's my wild card? I'll say maybe it's Calgary. I think maybe Calgary gets out of 1 year funk. I know the Stampeders have had a lot of bad juju lately. They had an awful year, their first time in the playoffs in 20 years. But I have a feeling Calgary finds a way to figure it out. They get one more year of one year of redemption to get back into things. Like I've the Elks in third. I've the Elks contend for the Western Division crown, but I think Calgary could surprise some people and get in that and be a wild card team that says, you know what, hey, we're not dead yet.
I like that. I like that a lot. I don't like Calgary.
Yeah, I don't.
But I think you're right because if we're looking at Winnipeg as potentially being a concern, potential fraud alert here on Winnipeg. If we're looking at that, teams have to rise, teams have to fall. That's what we've just talked about earlier on in the episode. So if Winnipeg goes down, Calgary may go up. So this is part of that story that we may see. Saskatchewan's trying to get stronger. BC Lions got Nathan Rourke.
Yeah.
Like the West is going to be a shootout, and it's going to come down to the final 3 games to decide seeding.
And you know what? I'm okay with that because last season the West was just not good.
Garbage.
It was garbage. So it would be nice to see a change in those dynamics. Like obviously in the East, you have some pretty strong contenders. You have some really strong teams that you have an idea of what may happen here. And in the West, you didn't know because everybody was kind of on the same field. Yeah. There was no actual top contender that you knew was going to take the lead, and nobody could take them down from that lead in the West. So I'm excited to see a little bit more action in the West from some of these teams and see what happens.
Totally. Duck Dad here in the herd chat. Can the Elks be the wild card? Oh, yes, they can, Duck Dad. Oh, yes, they can. And they just might be. Jamie Fadoon here in the herd chat. Winnipeg will be good. Still, they have Brady Oliveira as their running back, and they picked up Peyton Logan. And not denying their pickups either. But I'm just saying, if you're a Winnipeg Blue Bombers fan, you might be a little bit concerned.
Well, my concern would be in the loss of chemistry because they obviously had that chemistry in the previous team that they had, and it was working well for them. So what happens when you have a whole bunch of moving pieces?
But the same argument could be made for the Toronto Argonauts.
Very true.
Right.
So we'll see. But that being said, now that we have, the Elks being a wild card potentially, is a Grey Cup a realistic expectation for the fans of the Double E this year?
You said
what?
You said the GC. You said the GC.
Well, is it realistic?
Oh, that's a tough. I'm not gonna say it's impossible. I may not say on here now. Yes, it's gonna be a Grey Cup team. I do think Edmonton could be in a Western Final. I think they're hosting a playoff game for sure. I think they're hosting a playoff game. That's happening. But I do think they could be in the West Final. Grey Cup might be one more year away from that. But I think they're certainly going to be in a Western Final this year, probably playing against a BC or maybe against the Winnipeg. I have an Edmonton BC in the Western Final. But no, I think they're going to be a team that's going to go into the Western playoffs, host a playoff game, and have a deeper run.
And I think that's the realistic expectation,
that's
right?
Totally fair. I think I mentioned that today as we were talking to other fans, that I truly believe that Edmonton will make it to the playoffs. Whether they make it to the Grey Cup, I think they still have another year, 100%, before they may make it. We never know. You don't know. But realistically, that's what I could see happening.
Yeah, I mean, shout out Chantel and Michelle, Section X represent. Always good stuff. Always great seeing them. But really, I mean, expectations versus reality. Mm-hmm. And I mean, if the Edmonton Elks make it to even say home playoff game, because right now, if you're a fan, you just want improvement over last year. Mm-hmm. You want to see this team take this next step, make it to the playoffs. A home playoff game, I would almost say that's beyond expectation. And making it to the Grey Cup, that is even further beyond expectation. So, I mean, if you're a fan, I think that you just want to see improvement. With the moves being made and how everything's being hyped up right now, people got some great dreams now.
I mean, how close were we last season?
To making it to the playoffs, we were right?
This close. Right? So we have the building blocks. We have that initial ground, the ground to build upon on.
But off of a 7-11 record. Now flip the script. Let's see an 11-7 this year. Right? That's what we want. Her chat real quick. Duck Dad loves that question. That is amazing. Ken Shapka in the her chat. Double E in the playoffs for sure. Baby, let's go. Let's go. Love it.
Love it. Love it.
And Darren here, 21-1 Vegas line for an double E Grey Cup win. Took the bet. Throw a quick 20. I mean, we're not telling you what to do or anything, but you could throw a quick 20 on that. And you might see money. We'll see.
We might see it.
Yeah, let's talk about the fan base for a minute, because this is a fan base show. Shout out to everybody that is watching right now. You are tuned into the Elks Call here with Avry Lewis-McDougall of Avry Sports, amongst many other gigs that you have, Avry. But you know, the fan base, you can see that this fan base is starting to get rejuvenated. You're starting to see younger fans show up. You're starting to see more voice. Have you noticed a difference in the fan base since Chris Morris has taken over as president?
Oh, absolutely. Looking on social media, looking around the city, you're seeing younger fans, more diverse fans getting into it, wanting to know what the Elks are about, wanting to come to games, talking about, hey, I want to go to a game. I think it really started over the past couple of years with Trey Ford. People saw Trey Ford as a future and saw him as this dynamic quarterback that could carry the team. And I like the fact that you're seeing in marketing, the Elks are leaning into marketing Trey Ford. This is your guy. This is your quarterback. That's how you get fans into the building. That's how you get younger fans to latch on to a player they're going to embrace for the next 5, 6, 7 years. So yeah, I'm seeing those fans who are younger getting involved, want to be a part of it, because one thing too is that winning and success, that brings fans of all ages. Young people like cheering for a winner. They like cheering for success. And if Trey can lead them to success, you're going to see a lot more fans who are coming into the building, Commonwealth, who are my age.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, on that point, as a media member, you know, having that little media hat, what would you say your expectations are for the team and the fans this year?
My expectations are, I'm expecting this team to be, again, 10, 11 win team, go in, host a playoff game, get a win or two. I mean, if they're in the Grey Cup, that's beautiful. That is amazing. If they're playing Winnipeg for all the marbles, I would love that. That would mean you are back to, it would mean Ed Hervey has gone out and done what he said he would do. Mm-hmm. And for the fan base. I'm expecting the fan base to hopefully fill up the lower bowl again. I know we've closed off the upper bowl, but it'll be nice to see the demand get so high this season in 2025. You have to open the entire bowls up. I would love to see it get to a point in which, hey, there's more than 31,000 fans who want to go to a game or come into a game. The upper bowl has to be open for a few games. I'd love to see that next year.
Oh, I completely agree. This is something that we were just talking about at the season seed holder fan event. I'd just like to spend a couple minutes talking about that. The Edmonton Elks today, you covered the press conference. You saw some of that. We got to go as fans and to go to this season ticket holder event. And, they talked about May 17th. Mark the calendar. That's going to be fan day. But they immediately got back to the fans as quickly as possible. And especially with all of this, let's put a season ticket holder event on at Banquet, Ice District, Hotspot, full. Apparently the RSVPs were crazy. I think 500
people RSVP'd for today.
Yeah, and I believe the event was good for 50 to 100 or something.
Yeah.
So the demand really, it's over the top. So the fact that they're actually getting so many fans in on these events and the demand, it's the fan demand. We're starting to see this turn the corner again.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a shift and you can feel it. Right, which is very exciting because when I first joined this fandom, we'll call it fandom. When I first joined, it was very hot and cold. You could see the divide. Yeah, you could see the hardcores. You could see the ones that would be there regardless of what happened. And then you also saw a lot of those pessimistic kind of, bad mouthing the team for what's going on. And now you're seeing that switch, that now it's a lot more optimistic. There's a lot more community talk. There's a lot more interest. There's a lot more excitement.
There's a lot less talk about the name.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't know if it's because of the switch from the logo. Maybe that's all it took. Maybe they just wanted to get rid of, a logo and change that. But whatever it is that the team is doing right now is flipping the switch. Slowly but surely, and you're seeing more positive interactions between fans and the team, which is exciting. I mean, obviously, there's still a lot of things to address. The Elks have a lot of work to do, but it's really nice to see that, a lot of the negative comments, a lot of the pessimism, a lot of the things that you would hear a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, are no longer there.
Well, and I think the other thing that's cool, too, is, let's say I talked to Chris Morris tonight. And Chris Morris looked at me and was like, "Hey," and I'm like, "Hey, how's it going?" He's like,
"You're like, hey."
Good. Well, and I got him on Facebook. I mean, I got Chris Morris on Facebook. He follows the Elks herd. He has to know, what we do and everything. And he's like, "Yeah, pretty sweet event here, eh?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man, this is awesome. Really exciting. It's really exciting, to see what you guys are building." And then he goes, "Yeah, well, we still got a lot of work to do." And he, Chris Morris immediately. We haven't even played a down of football yet. That's his attitude, right? This is all just building up to whatever we're going to see at the season opener, the home opener, even preseason, and then Labor Day. I think that's also still something that we need to remember is that Labor Day is really where you find out what your team is made of. So it's cool to see that they're also not getting ahead of themselves either, but they're still celebrating the fans. They're also being really good with media. I think that's something that you can attest to. Avry.
Oh, their marketing has been great in the past year.
But allowing media in behind the veil still.
Oh, totally. No, that's been a big thing for the past couple of seasons. They've been very, very welcoming to, again, not just the bigger outlets, the TSNs, the CTVs, the CBCs, but to places like the Elks Herd, like Turf District, like myself with Avery Sports. They understand that you need the media to get your message out, and the media will praise you when it's called upon, and the media will hold you accountable when it happens. And the Elks PR team is really good understanding that, hey, the media is here to do a job, to talk to the fans, to do articles, to do content. And in years past, different CFL teams didn't grasp that. There was a thing years ago where the CFL didn't understand new age media. now they do very well. And I like the fact that the Elks have been top tier in media, in welcoming, making sure you got all your content, not pushing you away, which is a big thing to keep the industry alive, especially in the city here in Edmonton.
Mm-hmm.
No, totally. And I think that there was a lot of concerns because, obviously I remember the Ed Hervey V1 days as GM. And I remember how much the media would be pushed away out of the locker rooms and wouldn't be able to get behind there, wouldn't be able to do interviews, XYZ. Ed Hervey was really strict. And I think that was one of the biggest concerns about Ed Hervey coming back. What are we going to see for media members? Are media members going to be basically snarled at? And you would even agree, I think, or you would be able to attest, it hasn't been like that this time around.
No.
And it's funny though, I was in the minority. I've known Ed for many, many years, and even back in those days, he was always good to me. Always great to me. It was never any animosity. It was always, are you good? You get everything you need. Ed, to me, I'm in minority in that sense, where Ed never treated me poorly. I know there was the animosity in the past with the closed locker rooms, the access for different media members. And Ed himself would say, you know what? I grew, I learned, I can't be the way I was back in 2013, 2014. I got to be more open. You guys got to do your job in the locker room. So I think that openness is going to help Ed even more so going forward.
Yeah. Totally. And especially on this renewed campaign, right?
Well, once again, you got to adapt and overcome, right? Kind of adapt to the times, understand that traditional media is no longer the main point of contact to fans.
Well, and to kind of let people know as well, we had an article that we were going to put out about the new school of media. It was going to feature yourself, Sarah Sayad, who's awesome.
Yes.
A couple other members that are Showtime Digital.
Yeah.
We were trying to get all these interviews together and to put out a piece kind of showing where the CFL is going with their coverage.
Yeah.
It's no longer about your mainstream media, your MSM. Social media is becoming true media. It's so cool to see the landscape change, but what we do at the Elks Herd, it does make a small impact. Why? Because we try to get you all of the information all in one area. That's social media. That's literally how social media works. You grab information and you regurgitate it. We also create our own media to mix to that.
Yep.
Same deal. You create your own media and you add to the atmosphere. One of my favorite sayings, we're not here to take anybody's piece of pie. We're here to build a bigger pie with everybody. And I think that you've really done a great job of that, Avery. You're always collaborating. You're always in the mix somewhere. So I guess let's finish off this conversation. We'll get to Herd Chat comments and any questions at the end. Once again, Herd Chat, we see you, John. We see everybody. Make sure you get your questions in now so we can ask them after this last question. What other projects, Avery? What do you have going on? What's down the pipeline? What's in the world of Avery coming up?
So one project I'm finishing up here this week, which is CFL related, is my 3-part series on Craig Ellis, the Craig Ellis Files, which is on former CFL NFL running back and slot back Craig Ellis, and is diving into Craig's life, his career. And he's a name that he was one of the better running backs or receivers in the CFL, someone who's held team records, an all-star in the 80s and 90s, and is one of the few players of his generation who was an all-star, who is not in the Hall of Fame in Canadian football. So my series, where I sat down with Craig last month, dives into his numbers, his story, which is, people don't really know about Craig's story growing up in Los Angeles, playing San Diego State, his early days of playing pro football, going to the then Eskimos, the Stampeders, playing the NFL, playing with Dan Marino in Miami, playing with the LA Raiders. So there are things in which Craig's history, people don't really know about that. So my series is trying to paint a picture in terms of who Craig is and why he's underrated when it comes to his profile as a player in CFL history. So part 3 is dropping this week here, the finale. And also in Toronto, I'm doing an event with my other podcast, The Third Intermission, where we're doing a live show in the Stack Market in downtown Toronto called The Third Intermission Live. And we're all about making sure that hockey is a safe space for people of color, people from different backgrounds. So we're doing a live show in downtown Toronto, having some guests on, having panels. So if you're in Toronto, tickets are $25. Go to universal.com. We'll send you the link to the show. Come down, shop it up, meet all of our panelists and hosts. And we're just trying to make sure hockey is a safe space for people who are younger, who are Black, who are South Asian, who are different. Because hey, I want to make sure that hockey, all these different sports, are welcoming for those who are from different backgrounds, no matter what you look like.
Love that so much. The Carnegie Project, right? I believe you were a part of that.
Yeah, I covered that for the past 2 years here, the Carnegie Summit in Toronto, and that brought together so many people from the hockey world who were talking about moving the game forward. People like Donovan Bennett, Brian Burke, Brett Peterson, the for the Panthers AGM, Tara Sloan, and you talk about the fact that the Carnegie Summit brought together so many people in hockey, be it ex-players, media, management, who said, hey, let's make the sport better and let's address the fact that, yes, this game has its issues, it has its problems. What can we do to make it better? Because putting our heads in the sand and ignoring them is not going to progress the sport for the future.
Exactly. No, and love it. Love the message that the Carnegie Summit puts forward. Sean McMorrow, somebody, Ice Wars International. I've interviewed Sean McMorrow on Shotgun Sports. So, really awesome stuff. Definitely followed what was going on. I saw that you guys were in the same spot. So, love what that puts forward. And I agree. That's a completely different conversation, of course. But
that's an important conversation.
It's very important. It's very important conversation, and there does need to be more awareness, right? Especially in making hockey a safe space. I just love that message.
Yes.
Because I would even say I grew up through the minor hockey system as well in Fort McMurray. I can't even say that I felt that hockey was a safe space for me. So it's and call me privileged or whatever. There's a whole different conversation there, and it always does need to be brought up. So that's beautiful. And then the Craig Ellis Files Part 3.
That's cool.
Craig Ellis.
I want to watch that.
We had him on the show. The guy is a hoot, and really appreciate you tagging us on X and everywhere else. We'll always share it. Anytime we see the tag, we're going to share it. But listening to it and listening to Craig Ellis's story, I think that that's something that we talk about fairly often. Yeah. If you're going to be a media member, you're there to tell the story. The story is not about you. You're there to tell the story. And Avery, you're great at doing that. You're great at drawing the story out, right? So, Double E fans that are tuning in right now, we see the stream hopping right now with activity. So shout out to everybody that's watching right now. Go check out the Craig Ellis story. Part 1, part 2 is out there. That's on averysports.com, correct?
That's correct. Yes. And I got to appreciate Craig for trusting me and coming to me and say, hey, I trusting me with his story, because he could have gone to outlets. He could have gone to people who he knew from his playing days. He could have gone to different outlets, but he trusted me with his story to get it out there to an audience. And my big thing when I met with Craig was, the big thing for me, and this is one thing that I can give advice to other people who maybe want to get into media or students, whoever else, the big thing is when someone has a story to tell like that, make sure you listen. Make sure you listen to what they're saying, because it's your platform, yes, but it's their story. And that was my thing, is that in part 1 and part 2, I ask in both these parts maybe 3 questions total, because Craig is telling me his story, and it's my job to cue him up to tell his story on his life and his career. That's my job.
Love that. No, man, I love that so much. You're so right.
That's a sign of a true professional in media.
True professional, but really understanding the assignment, right?
100%. Well, but that's just it. How many times do we see somebody in the media that doesn't get that? Right? That you see so many interviews with celebrities that you're just like, what are you doing? Let them talk. Right? So that is true professionalism. Being able to understand that it's about the person that is trying to tell the story.
And to digest what the other person's saying and to put that into effect, right? Like, even tonight, I took a quick selfie video with Aaron Grimes, and I didn't follow up immediately after with what he said, and I didn't add on top of it. And I was just trying to get this video out to our friend Jace, and I'm like, man, I should have added more to it, but I'm like, yo, I had to run into it. So it was like, it's one of those things. I was like, man, I was a bad storyteller in that video, but I didn't add to the story. Now, as an interviewer, if you're interviewing, you just want to progress the story, right? You want the other person to bring out the best of them. You're there to bring out the best of them. You're not there to be like, oh yeah, well I remember when.
Yeah.
Nah, man. Like let this guy tell his story. So what did you do about that?
Yeah.
So Avry is a consummate professional. Really, really thankful, man, to have you on tonight. Let's get to the herd.
Yeah, we're just gonna. I don't think we have any questions, but we do have some comments back on some of the things that we mentioned. Of course, bringing it back to over here, Duck Dad saying the Elks get to double-digit wins and all bets are off. Elks and Argos proved recently the well-coached team that's cohesive can go far in the CFL if peaking at the end of the season. So we know that for sure. Darren over here, we just have to win, baby. That's all we gotta do. Yeah. John over here in the chat, winning Grey Cup.
Winnipeg Grey Cup.
Winnipeg Grey Cup. Here comes the Elks herd. Yeah, the fans. We are all the Elk herd.
We are the Elks herd. All collectively, we are all the Elks herd. Elks Nation is also a term that's been being used.
Oh, interesting.
Ed is adding, bringing it in free agency, and that's probably a swear word that we will not say live. But yeah, man, Ed is effing bringing it.
We're not monetizing. It's okay. Avry, the Stinger's coming up. He also mentioned that he's very that he likes that you cover the CBL.
Yes,
that's very.
Yeah, I've covered them from day one. I covered their first two championships. Last year was a bit of they made back to the playoffs, hosted a playoff game, lost to Calgary. Going to be a lot of turnover as the last guys who played in their title teams have now retired. So it's going to be a lot of turnover. They re-signed Nick Hornsby, who's been there for a couple of years now, but it's going to be a pretty new team or a pretty unfamiliar team next year, considering the fact that you no longer have any guys on this roster who are part of their championship teams back in 2020 and 2021 going into 2025.
Yeah, like the Stingers might actually be on a little bit of a dip here, and they're going to have to rebuild their way back. I mean, long gone are the days of Xavier Moon, right?
Mm-hmm. No, Xavier. Yeah. Yeah,
sorry.
We're nowhere. So I was just gonna say, Xavier was playing in Russia, got hurt, so he's recovering now. But yeah, no, it's gonna be long gone from the days of Xavier Moon, Adiga, Peter McNeely, Brody Clark, Jordan Baker on the floor. It's down to Jordan Baker to try and figure out what he's gonna do in free agency to rebuild his team. And you're right, it might be a bit of a down year. It might not be the juggernaut Stingers which we were used to earlier in this decade. So I want to see what Baker's going to do to rebuild this roster come next summer.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what kind of pieces he can grab, right? And I mean, Xavier Moon, it would be nice if you could somehow get him back. I don't know how the salary cap is looking in the CBL these days, but I think he's making more money than the Stingers can afford. So it'll be really interesting.
Regardless, it's always a good time.
Well, and no, but the Stingers are. They are.
They
have been selling out.
Listen, I have only been to one game. I definitely want to go to more games. I didn't realize how fast-paced it is.
Yeah.
How fast-paced basketball.
And Avry calls this. Avry calls basketball.
I have no idea how.
Yeah.
But bringing it back over here, we do have a comment over here from Sinjin. I haven't been this excited for a roster in quite a while. We've definitely emptied the coffers of what seems to be an all-star roster, so that's exciting.
That's what they needed to do. Darren Bobowich here did have a question that he had actually asked yesterday on Jason's show, so let's get to it now, Darren. Scout, what's the scoop on DeBlanco now that Niles Morgan is back? So, I mean, it's the same scoop as last year, really. Joel DeBlanco will be used in more of a special teams way. He's going to be, linebacker, special teams, same deal as Ativa Malga-Clement. Those two are probably going to be retaining their roles. And we'll see what kind of opportunity may pop up after that. Nick Anderson, I think he only has a 2-year rookie deal. So I think what's going to happen here is Nick Anderson's going to have himself one heck of a year. Niles Morgan is obviously going to be stellar like usual. Those guys are going to be one heck of a midfield. And Joe DeBlanco, he's really going to have to step it up if he wants to take, let's say, Nick Anderson's spot. Because there has been some concern with his movement. His side to side isn't necessarily as great as, let's say, the two guys that are in those spots now, right?
Well, I think we're getting to the same kind of conversations that we had at the last, half of last season, is that players are going to be really playing for their position. They're going to have to.
It's going to be a very competitive training camp, right? Avery, like, what do you think? We're going into that training camp. How competitive is this going to be?
It'll be very competitive. You mentioned Joel DeBlanco, someone who came in with high expectations, someone who had the experience down the NFL. He's someone who, is going to be hungry. He's going to try and want to get a starting spot linebacker, because we know last year, we thought he was going to come in last year and get a spot, be a guy you could plug in and play. It didn't happen last year, but I think he's going to come back motivated next year, try to get a spot. But when Niles Morgan there, that's going to be tough, because Niles Morgan is the incumbent guy for this Elks team at linebacker. So I want to see how the battle is going to look, because there's going to be some work for DeBlanco, but it'll be fun either way to see how he competes with Niles Morgan.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he can move into that like permanent secondary, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, it'll be a very telling year, especially for Joe DeBlanco, with him being taken first overall.
Right.
That hope is there that he can be an elite Canadian linebacker, Cincinnati Bearcats. It's going to be ultra competitive, I think, like you said, Avery. Last herd chat comments here. Give DeBlanco a chance to develop. We have an elite linebacking core with a lot of depth, and maybe with our field being bigger, maybe that's something that he's not used to either, and that's taking him some time to develop. Now, what happens if Nick Anderson gets his NFL deal after next season? You're gonna need Joel DeBlanco to move into that spot, and maybe you get a similar linebacker, right? Once again, it's all about that development. Anderson, Morgan, Ragamba for the linebackers. Ragamba is going to be the Sam linebacker, as we say. So,
yeah, we'll see.
I'm so excited. Alrighty. Yeah. Everybody, this is all the time we have for this segment.
Tonight.
Well,
so we have
that's all we have for this segment. We'll let Avery jump off, and then we'll close off the show.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and thank Avery for joining us tonight for our free agent frenzy. It's always exciting to talk football with like-minded people, but also a media member. Man, Avery, you have been crushing it out there in the Edmonton media landscape and atmosphere. I see you even at my workplace. It's always good to see you, man. You've been doing great things for this city. We're all very, very happy to have you covering our teams, man. And we can't thank you enough for joining us tonight.
Thank you. It was an honor to be on here, Scout and Catherine. And again, what you guys are doing with Elks Herd is amazing. Because I remember years ago when I first started this, there wasn't elk podcasts like this. There wasn't the elk live streams. They are few and far between. So what you all are doing and getting to know players as well is so needed in the CFL media landscape.
Hey, man. Appreciate the words. The respect definitely goes both ways. You're doing it on a bigger scale. So for you to join us tonight, Meeting of the Minds, man, can't thank you enough. We know that you're a busy guy, and we've already taken a lot of your time. So we'll let you jump off, but we'll chat soon enough, my friend. Thanks again.
No, of course. Sounds good, gang. Later.
Have a good night.
Cheers, Avery. And that was Avry Lewis-McDougall from Avery Sports. Once again, Grant McGriffin's commentator, play-by-play for basketball.
Oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to go back in the recording just to get everything that he does.
Yes, it is a list, huge list, but yeah, I mean, great guy, great interview. Avry rocks. We've been talking about collaborating in some way for a hot minute now. What better day than a monumental day 2 of CFL Free Agency? Edmonton Elks grabbing Tyrell Ford.
Herbie is cooking.
Pull up. Let Ed cook, okay? All right, final herd chat comments here. John here is asking why TSN, the official media partner for the CFL, isn't covering the league as much as they could be. Simply put, I mean, it's when you own a media network like that, like on that scale. I mean, Shotgun Sports Network, professional media company. We do have accredited media for the CFL. Unfortunately, we're not the prime media partner, and we did not pay millions for that CFL
there
coverage.
Always has to be a major signing its sponsor partnership
media partner
with one of those, whether it is TSN or any of the other ones, really. So there always will be, but the reality is that now we're seeing a lot less of that, the traditional media,
but we're seeing more social media,
but we're seeing a lot more other type of content out there, YouTube content, podcasting
such
media,
as
reels,
such as our friends over at the Turf District, right?
Of course.
11th season. They're on episode 2. Shout out to the Turf District. Make sure you go check out their show for even more Edmonton Elks content. Like we say, we're not here to steal a piece of the pie, but we're trying to build a bigger one.
100%. There is never enough CFL content out there.
A bigger disgrace is the lack of coverage on Sportsnet. It's basically zero.
Yes.
Sometimes they get Justin Dunk on there to talk a little bit of CFL, but
it is a disgrace.
I will agree. It's also because they're salty because they don't have that CFL contract. I mean, great interview with Avry, right?
Yeah. Jamie over here does ask when will, if you know, I'm not sure if you know when the CFL will introduce a new commissioner.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have no information on that one. I mean, obviously before the start of the season. And I would say if I'm a betting man, they're trying to get this done before the CFL combine. Like before the CFL draft.
I would see. I mean, I could see that the next couple of months are going to be busy.
Next month.
Yeah.
I would say don't be surprised to see an announcement within the next month and a half.
Yeah.
I would, if I'm throwing a dart, next month to month and a half, because when they do the CFL combine, you're trying to turn the page. You're trying to move on here. You're trying to introduce the next season.
Right.
Randy Ambrosie still being in the mix right now. It's kind of wishy-washy. It's kind of cheesy.
Yeah.
Randy Ambrosie said that he's resigning, and then another major figure in Canada sticking around for a while. You're like, what's going on? I thought you resigned, right?
Yeah, it takes a while. It takes time to get all of that. So I don't know. We'll see. No, we haven't heard anything, so we'll be just as surprised as you will be.
I like John's comment here. Shotgun Sports Network needs their own TV channel and to become the official partner of the CFL. If you give us millions of dollars in funding to then go buy that contract,
we will. We'll make that happen.
Hit us up, admin@shotgunsportsnetwork.ca for your opportunity on how you can grow with Shotgun Sports Network and how we can buy the CFL contract.
We need sponsors.
Yeah. Very bluntly, yes, we do need sponsors. Once again, that's admin@shotgunsportsnetwork.ca. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is all the time we have for tonight. What a fantastic episode. Yeah. First off, we didn't even plug Royal Retros once. Get on over to royalretros.com. If you love this show, go buy yourself some throwback gear and use our code Shotgun Sports, all caps, no spaces, over at royalretros.com. Throwback Kings. If you want a jersey that looked like a Warren Moon-esque, inspired jersey, go check it out. They have it there. You could even get Moon #1 on it. Yeah. Once again, that's Royal Retros. Also, if you want to buy gear that directly supports CFL players, because they do have the CFLPA licensed gear, that's also royalretros.com.
Yep, definitely.
Go check them out. It's fantastic. Also, one more, John here, maybe Shotgun Sports Network on Roku TV. We're already looking into that.
Oh, are we?
I told you we almost had a deal. We're just gonna do it ourselves.
Look at that.
Shotgun Sports Network
News
on
to me
repeat.
too.
We'll talk about it after the show. All right, everybody. Once again, you the viewer. We got to thank you, the viewer. If you are listening, on iHeartRadio, tune in Edmonton Sports Talk. Anywhere you get it, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you get your podcasts, we salute you for listening to the show. If you're watching on Shotgun Sports Network, or you're watching on the Elks Herd, give us a like, give us a subscribe, spread the love, because that's how we grow with you. Can't thank you all enough for joining us tonight on this free agent special. And if you want more CFL free agency coverage from Shotgun Sports Network, check out last night's episode of Stampeders Roundup with Jason, Clay from Argos Fancast, obviously myself, but Dave Naylor from TSN. Dave Naylor of TSN was on that episode. So
cool.
2 nights in a row, we got some great media members for you here on Shotgun Sports Network. We really hope you guys enjoyed our CFL free agency coverage. And yeah, check out the Elks Herd on social media to find out more. From Shotgun Sports Network HQ, my name is Scout, aka the rep from Section X.
And I'm Catherine, aka Devin Elks.
We are the Elks Herd. This was the Elks Call free agency special, and we will check everybody in about a month or two. And in about 2 weeks, we're going to have another best of episode. So thanks a lot, everybody, for tuning in. Check you next time.
Have a good night.
Cheers.